Okay, so I was trying to figure out how to start this, and in the tradition of an amazing storyteller, I will just go with this. Picture it. Tucson, January 14th, 2010. Winter, which meant it was a frigid 75 degrees outside. So I was walking back into a 12-step meeting for my third meeting, and I was walking into a Catholic church, which I had not been in a Catholic church in, God, probably since I was about 12 or 13 years old. And so I was walking into this church to go to this meeting, and the particular 12-step group that I'm a part of generally has a high population of older ladies. And as a trans man, like many other people tonight, I was avidly worrying about, well, were there going to be other queers in the room? And so I'm having this like kind of freak out. I walk in, I sit down, the meeting happens, and as I sit down initially, I look over and there's this friend of mine who is fabulously queer, and she's like, yes! And so after the meeting's over, she is also an actress, and so she comes over like me, she's like, Rae, there's this person I want you to meet. And I'm like, oh, awesome, okay. And so I had noticed this really cute woman across the way from me who was wearing a gray vest and black jeans, and who was crocheting this purple scarf like mad. I think it was a scarf, anyway. And I was like, oh, she's kind of cute, whatever. And so my friend brings me over, she's like, this is Wendy, you're gonna love her. Oh my God, she was right.
So, at my darling's request, I have worn the same vest and probably the same pants. I did not bring up the crocheting, however, because I thought that would be too many things to manage. But I did bring it with me in case I was going to go crazy. I do remember this meeting, but Rae remembers the date and the year. I remember what day of the week it was because the meeting always happens on Thursday, so that's a piece of cake for me to remember. And so we started overlapping at assorted meetings and seeing each other, and as time progressed, it was clear that there was something else going on, and it kind of freaked me out. And part of the reason why it freaked me out is that in 2004, my first husband died, and I had dated just a little bit in the intervening years, and so having somebody who was clearly interested in me was really freaky.
Oh, it's my turn?
Yeah.
Awesome. So we sort of did this little dance of like, I don't know, does she like me? I have no idea. Let me ask all of my friends. Do you think she likes me? I have no idea. So that thing. Because I didn't know what I was doing. Yay. And I also get to feel like I'm following that mic stand. Anyhow. And so there was a lot of that. Some of those people were in this room. Anyway, and so finally we had this exchange about photography, which has got us talking, and then I found out that she'd been to Africa, which I was like, that's amazing. I'm from Georgia, can't you tell? Very small town in South Georgia, where I met Carolyn, yay! So I was like, wow, where I come from, if you want to see the world, you go to Epcot Center. It's amazing. So,
dancing around, him talking to everybody and his mama, and me not talking to anybody about what's going on. And, talking after the meeting, standing in the parking lot, and those of you who go to 12-step meetings know about the parking lots. And so we talked in the parking lot, and then there were some dinners, there were some movies, there was some back rubbing in the movies. And it just, it kind of moved along from there. And things were getting more serious, and so I came out. Well, not came out, but I told my son that I was dating somebody. That was nice. And as time progressed, it's getting towards holidays, and my late husband's parents were going to come out and visit. And so I kind of let them know that I was dating somebody. And so there was this discussion about Rae meeting them for the first time. And go ahead. I'm good. Go ahead.
Well, okay, thanks. So, yeah, it was very interesting because, first of all, if there's anybody Presbyterian in the room, you will know who Wendy's father-in-law is, which is Charles West. Yes, that Charles West. So I was very intimidated by how smart this man is, and also the fact that he's Mr. Dr. West because he's married to Mrs. Dr. West. And plus, it's her son's grandparents. Like, this is kind of a big deal. And so I was nervous. And so she gives me this piece of advice.
So I told Rae about the first time that I met Walter's parents, and I took a chaperone to go meet them, who was a college friend of Walter's and mine. And the night before I was going to go and visit Walter's parents, I went to Connecticut where Ted lived and spent the night at his parents' house, and he talked me off a ledge by basically telling me when I was really nervous about meeting Walter's parents because they're Mr. Dr. West and Mrs. Dr. West, and they're very educated. And as I like to say, my family is one generation away from schleppers, and here are these two people who are tenured faculty, chairs of their departments at major universities. And Ted says to me in his infinite wisdom, they're wasps. If they don't like you, you'll never know. The reality is that I did kind of know that they sort of liked me, because at one point during the luncheon that my mother-in-law made for us, it was a conversation about how they invited the odd seminary student in to bring in the wood in the winter, and I looked at her and I said, odd? Odd how? And we had this moment of just bonding. And so I told Rae this story, and I said, if they don't like you, you'll never know.
Because they're wasps. Okay, so fast forward a bunch. So I've asked her on the side of a mountain to marry me, and she said yes, which was great, because, this is why you take someone out to a cliff to ask that question.
And I was clueless that this was going to happen. It was our anniversary of having started dating. I asked Rae what he wanted to do. Did he want to go to the Santana concert? He said yes. He said, well, we have time for a picnic before. I said, sure. So he prepared this really adorable spread, and so we're sitting out there, nibbling on assorted food bits, and he said, so there's something I need to ask you, and I still am clueless.
And so I handed her the tiny little box, which had a AAA insignia on it.
Which
That's
is a whole
another
other
story.
story.
And I was all like, will you please? And I sort of fumbled around, and she's all like, what? And so then she opened it, and of course it was the ring. And it's one of those sad things that sometimes happens to trans folks. It was my grandmother's ring. But it was given to me as a graduation present for me to wear. And I carried it around with me a bunch, not really sure what I was supposed to do with it until I met her. Yay. And so the reason we tell you the story about the West is because the awesome thing about this is that our wedding was sort of a double thing, because Wendy's rabbi married us, as did her father-in-law. And so we had to have a conversation with him. Both of us were all like, well, we got to tell him that you're trans. Like, there's that thing. It's got to happen. We got to make sure he's okay with it.
So they're out visiting at Christmas. We're going to be getting married the next year. And we sit down in the living room in the house that we live in. And we say, well, there's some things we want to talk to you about officiating at the wedding and being part of the ceremony. And they said, oh, good, because we had something to ask you. And I'm like, oh, okay. And my mother-in-law says to Rae, so your family's Italian? And he's like, yeah, my dad's Italian. And she goes, so there aren't a lot of Italian Jews, are there? And he says, I'm not Jewish. And they're hugely relieved, because my father-in-law had an issue about officiating at a ceremony between two Jews. So he's all relieved that Ray's not Jewish.
To which Mrs. Dr. West looked at me and said, but you have such a cute little rabbinical beard.
So then we go, no, actually, really, there's something else we need to tell you.
Yeah, we're sort of sitting on the couch doing this. Am I going to do it, or are you going to do it?
No, you're going to do it.
So we said, yeah, actually, there's something else that you need to know, because we want to make sure that you're okay with this. And he's like, what? And I said, so Mrs. Dr. West had been sent an email. We kind of hoped that Mrs. Dr. West was going to tell him, so this would be a really easy thing. We still have no idea whether she told him or not. But anyway, so I say to him, I'm like, I just want you to know that I'm transgendered. And he's like, can you tell me what that means? So I was like, well, I was born a woman, and now I'm the fabulousness that you see here. I didn't say it that way. And so he's like, so what you're telling me is that you're a man? And I'm like, mm-hmm. And he's like, and you love this woman? And I'm like, mm-hmm. He's all like, that seems to fit the requirement. I have no problem marrying you.
So we thought we would end this because when Carolyn asked me if we'd be willing to do this, I said yes. And then I was like, oh, I didn't ask Rae. And then I did ask him. And then we've had this ongoing conversation at various points in our relationship about our differences. And so we wondered why Carolyn had picked us to be part of this odd couple discussion. So there's a very long list of things that we don't have in common that make us kind of an odd couple. Aside from the really obvious part that I'm straight and he's trans and queer, and that works. So there's the age difference.
I'm 39.
Saturday's my birthday. I forgot when we agreed to do this that my birthday's going to be on Saturday. I can say that too. Anyway, so my birthday's on Saturday. I was born in 1956, which is a challenge for my son to do the math. But that means that I'm going to be 58. So there's the age difference. I'm Jewish. Rae is...
Well, so I'm half Southern Baptist and half Catholic. You figure it out.
I grew up in Brooklyn in a very urban setting.
I grew up in a town 45 minutes from Savannah, Georgia. Yeah, just leave it at that. Your passport, you had to add pages to. I have yet to own one.
I've had 3 passports.
Oh, never mind then.
One of them had to have extra pages added to it. I have traveled to I don't know how many countries.
I've traveled to some states that I know about.
What were the other things?
Well, there was this thing when I was like fretting like crazy. Like, here's this awesome woman. I have no earthly idea how we're going to figure this out. She says to me, don't worry about it. I was in the Peace Corps. I have lots of experience with cross-cultural things.